Hello out there in YouTube land.
Welcome back to our channel.
We thought we'd do a little bit of a bonus video on the history of vampires in literature.
So if you watched our clip on vampires in movies, we kind of segued a little bit into some literature, some history.
But we thought this would be an interesting discussion and something extra to add to, well, vampire/Halloween month.
Yeah. And just remember to enter for our giveaway. Just hit the raffle copter link below. And that will enter you right into the drawing.
Yep.
And that is for continental United States. And we will be giving away a variety of makeup.
It's like over something, I think that I did the math and it's something like around $220 worth of different makeup items.
Right. And we have Stila, Jeffree Star, just a variety of things. So make sure check out our former posts.
Yeah.
We have those on Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely.
And be sure to comment down below with your favorite vampire books. We're interested.
Absolutely. So, while every country has some type of vampire figure in their folklore, we consider the vampire today to really stem from the vampire panic in the Serbian countryside in the 1700s. So, at the time, people thought vampires were all over Serbia. It was this mass panic. Anytime somebody died, they're like, vampire! So, when you get into research on decomposition, you realize these things are normal, but, the reason why they were freaking out is because it seemed like the hair and skin had grown, nails had grown, and when we're in reality, your skin loses water, and so thus everything shrinks down, and it makes it look like it's grown. And, there's blood around the mouth, which of course comes from digestive juices breaking down in decomposition. And, and the seemingly delayed decomposition they classified as vampires, well, a lot of times they only waited something like 2 weeks to dig up a body when it was in the middle of winter. So you're not going to decompose if you're frozen.
Right.
It's just like if you put a roast in the freezer, it's not going to break down because you've halted the decomposition process.
Right. Right. And I guess where we really wanted to start was as early as 1748 in a poem called The Vampire by Heinrich August Ossenfelder.
Yeah.
And it says, and as softly thou art sleeping, to thee shall I come creeping, and thy life's blood drain away.
So that is what has been classified as the first mention of a vampire in anything remotely, I want to say, entertainment-wise or creatively. There are certainly, documentations of folklore and that type of thing, but this is specifically talking about a creative work that someone has done that mentions a vampire. Right,
and most things before this, were word of mouth. They were legends and stories handed down through generations. But that was one of the first clips of a vampire in literature.
And so then, those stories traveled to England, and Southey did a epic poem called Thalaba the Destroyer that is the first mention of a vampire in English literature.
And that kind of gave rise, moving into 1816, we have The Vampire by John Polidori. And that novella really sparked and came to life during the same ghost story evening that spawned Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein.
And it was basically like a group of friends. There was Polidori, Mary Shelley, the famous actor that later played Dracula, I'm blanking on his name. And they all just had this discussion about different stories that they could come up with. And Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein, and Polidori came up with the vampires, Byron. Byron, who, and for many years they actually attributed the vampire to Byron because they thought that Polidori couldn't have written it.
Right.
Which is kind of sad, really. But no, it was Polidori who wrote the vampire.
That sounds like something we would do. We would just kind of sit around sharing ideas about what do we write and
we should do that.
What kind of story we should.
We totally should do that. Ooh, no idea.
Yes.
So, then 50 years later is when we had the first vampire novel, which was Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla. And it's also the first a vampire novel to feature an LGBTQ romance. And, some people might be like, oh no. Well, actually, yes. The vampire Carmilla is crossing her victim because she loves her.
Right.
She actually wants to have her with her for eternity. So it actually is a romance. It's not just, vicious vampire preying on innocent girl at this castle. It literally is Carmilla wants this girl as her lover.
Right. And it really was forward for when it was written.
Yeah, I mean, you figure that's like 1860. I mean
that's
that's really forward thinking, especially with all the problems that have occurred in the United States and other countries regarding people that aren't straight, or however what you want to say it. But
this is Civil War era in the United States.
Le Fanu was awesome. Period.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us into the novel that spawned well over 200 films and numerous pop culture mentions, and we all know it, Dracula by Bram Stoker. And that was published for the first time in 1897.
So you figure we've had Dracula
for a long time.
Let's see. 100 years was 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So over 120 years.
Yeah.
No, not 120 years. Yeah, because 2017 would have been, yeah. Sorry, my math is bad.
Over 120 years we have had Dracula in our lives.
Yeah.
That is astounding.
It's
and just the impact of one piece of literature on society, how it affected the movie generation's theater.
Yes.
Everything else.
And without Dracula, we wouldn't have a lot of different things. So
right.
it's everything kind of harkens back to that novel in terms of memory of what a vampire should be in the Western world.
Right.
And then, vampires kind of, with Dracula, since it was a worldwide phenomenon, it traveled everywhere. And, with that, you have numerous books, numerous movies of different things, and, it just kind of started to evolve in something a little bit different.
And that brings us into 1954, where Richard Matheson comes onto the scene. And he introduced us to a brand new type of kind of vampire hunter, as well as a new type of vampire in I Am Legend. And that's where it gets really fun, because he marries the vampire to science, to modern science. And that really started bringing about this whole new archetype of a vampire as the bloodthirsty goon, but from a scientific standpoint.
Yes. I mean, because you figure if you ever actually take the time to read the novel, Matheson explores ideas of virology and things like that as to how a vampire could actually take over the world. And it's really a fascinating novel, and it's very unique.
It's often confused for being zombies,
and it's not. It's vampires.
It's actually vampires.
I mean, the virus is developed from vampire bat DNA.
Right.
So it is vampires. It is not zombies. I don't care who's saying that. They've never read the book. If they're only concentrating on the movies, then I could see where they might make that mistake. But then, even then, they'd only be able to be concentrating on the Omega Man, because The Last Man on Earth, which was the first film adaptation, flat out calls them vampires, uses wooden stakes, the whole 9 yards. So, I Am Legend is vampires. Period.
Exactly.
So then, in 1976, we had Anne Rice. And Anne Rice introduced us to Interview with the Vampire and Lestat, and all these well-loved characters. You kind of got into the mind of the vampire with her novels.
And they became more than just a creature, an evil creature or spirit.
They had, soul and brains and likes and dislikes and reasons for doing what they did. And that allowed us to see the vampire's humanity, which is why her books were so unique.
Right. And that kind of brings us into a little bit more modern literature. We all know Stephenie Meyer. She took it a bit further. And instead of being this bloodthirsty, driven only by the need to feed on blood, she turned her vampires into vegetarians.
Or her version of vegetarian.
Or her version. So, and it remains just a constant that, the vampire in literature is not dying, it's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have such a different concept of, vampires that control their bloodlust through eating wildlife instead of
Feeding
people.
on humans, yeah.
Or you have a virus-based vampire, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, literally the only thing that would limit you is imagination, and everyone has a totally different imagination. So, what's next for vampires? Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm glad we're around to see what's coming.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Who knows what the figure that rises up from the grave is going to sink its teeth into next.
So we hope you enjoyed our little foray into vampires in literature.
Have a very good Halloween. Have a wonderful evening.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.